Hello, everyone. Today we're having a very important event on the EU and UK regulations. Why we decided to organize it? It's because the European Union issued a number of new documents, including the new of its kind AML regulation and also the regulation of AMLA. And today we'll be also discussing a little bit these new regulations and the importance of the collaboration with the UK financial sector and the regulators, because these two financial sectors are interconnected.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Andrei, for organizing this event and for having me. Well, the anti-money laundering regulation is one of the key components of the AML package and one that has the most direct impact on the financial industry, particularly, but not only, on the cross-border transactions. The changes consist in particular in KYC requirements. They are related to KYC requirements. A few additional requirements have been added. The regulation specifies the information and documents that must be obtained to verify the customer's identity, and this will include from now on all first and last names and all nationalities. The challenge is that these requirements apply equally to the beneficial owners of the client. And when we talk about the beneficial ownership, the requirements have also changed. Previously, the requirements for the identifying them were interpreted differently in the EU member states, and beneficial ownership is now defined in the AML regulation at a threshold of 25% or more. In Germany, the case was previously more than 25%. In addition to this, the European Commission may set lower thresholds for certain sectors if they would think that they are considered to be high risk. So this is a tremendous change when it comes to beneficial ownership information. In addition to that, we come to PEP definition, which is also going to be extended, and it will include now persons who hold seats in regional or local executive or legislative bodies representing constituencies of at least 50,000 inhabitants. So for the financial institutions, the expected increase in the number of PEP clients may affect not only their risk profile, but also their KYC-related expenses. And there are, apart from the KYC requirements, there will be changes regarding the customer review cycle. Now, customer updates should take place at least every 5 years, and in case of high-risk customers, every 1 year on annual basis. And this was not the case before. Currently in Germany, for instance, BaFin accepts up to 15 years for low-risk customers and up to 2 years for high-risk customers. So there is a huge change. There are additional specifications for a request for information from authorities. Financial institutions are now obliged to respond to requests for information in case of suspicious, of course, within 5 days. And there are exceptional cases where this can be reduced to less than 24 hours. So this shall have a huge impact on resource requirements, review of internal processes, and working instructions as well. And I would like to jump to risk assessment, because this is also something that financial institutions should also have to revise. One very important component of the risk assessment now shall be the risk of non-implementation and circumvention of financial sanctions related to proliferation financing, which is relatively new and very challenging, I would say. The AML regulation extends to crypto sectors, obliging all crypto asset service providers to conduct customer due diligence on their customers as well. This might impact relationships with crypto customers as well. So overall, the overall impact of the changes for financial institutions means reviewing internal processes, policies, timelines, risk assessment, resource capacities. So that is my view on the changes of the AML regulation. And as I mentioned, this is only one part of the AML package, although I would say the most important one at the moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rozeta, very much for that comprehensive overview. Yes, the new regulation is pretty huge. Make sure to introduce yourself to it on the official website of the European Commission, where you can find the document. And unfortunately, we were having some technical issues at the beginning, and nobody heard the introduction. I'm really sorry for that. Let me quickly introduce everyone once again. So Rozeta Kokalari is a senior director at Ankura, based in Frankfurt. She joined Ankura after a number of years working for various Big Four companies, and prior to that, leading the compliance department of a European bank. She has been in the financial crime compliance industry or space for 20 years and specializes in risk, governance, and regulatory compliance. Dr. Mariola Marzouk is a specialist in trade-based money laundering with a background in forensic accounting and compliance technologies. She co-founded Vortex Risk Solutions and has conducted groundbreaking research in trade-based money laundering detection. Mariola also serves as an honorary lecturer at the University of Portsmouth and actively contributes to Coptic orphans' charitable work. We also have Professor Marius Laurinaitis, who is a professor at the Mykola Romeris University of Lithuania. He has a strong background in the investigations services of Lithuania, performing financial crime investigations. And he is right now a study director of the program of law enforcement in FinTech right now. And Professor Branislav Hock, who is a professor at the University of Portsmouth, with whom we participated and who organized and hosted us at the conference in the University of Portsmouth. After that, we decided to organize that important event on the collaboration between the two important financial sectors. And also Igoris Krzeckovskis, a former deputy head of the Financial Intelligence Unit of Lithuania. He's an international anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing expert, and also performs work on UNODC and European projects in developing countries, helping countries to establish anti-money laundering regulations. So, thank you. Sorry for that interruption at the beginning. And let's continue our discussion with the new anti-money laundering authority, its powers, responsibilities, and its role in that new European package, and its role in standardizing compliance in the European Union. And I would like to give the word to Professor Marius Laurinaitis. Please.
Yeah, thank you. It's a big pleasure to be with you. So before I start, I think I need to mention some fun fact about the AMLA, and I think you know that Lithuania tried to be the AMLA country. We just invest a lot of some kind of the public companies to try. We tried to attract more attentions on the Lithuanian as a fintech country, yeah. But the main problem regarding the new regulation and the biggest challenge was to harmonize the regulation. Ed is the same, like all European directive has the same purpose to harmonize regulation. But what happened in more than 10 years, we had the same regulation, we had the same directive, but we had different practice regarding the authorities, regarding the interpretation of some rules, and the same level of the supervision. So some countries we were too strictly, so the central banks and other FIU units, they just act too strongly, let's say, or were too slowly. Some countries try to attract more fintech companies to establish their own business in the country, as Lithuania. A lot of other countries blamed, for example, each other that your supervision level is too low, you do not match the international standards and other things. So for that reason, the European Commission, they already established the AML organization with main important purpose to help harmonize some rules. So they will adopt the one document, for example, with the specific recommendation for KYC procedures and boarding procedures. Each countries, they will use it directly as the reglement, let's say. So that's mean not the different countries' central banks will evaluate, but the AMLA itself, they will be able just to check the all requirements. They can analyze how you match the standards, and that was the main or most important purpose for the AMLA organization. Everyone is thinking the AMLA will create the single European Union rule book for the money laundering prevention, terrorism financing prevention, which includes some specific standards for the customer due diligence, reporting obligations, internal controls things, and this harmonization reduce the regulatory fragmentation and simplify some compliance for the cross-border entities, especially for the cross-border entities, because we have a lot of companies which are operating in several countries, especially, for example, operating at UK and then European countries. We know that some of the European countries where they are just strictly the central banks, they're not welcoming the new kinds of the companies, and that's why they are trying to find, let's say, better jurisdictions for the acting and for the business. So AMLA has the purpose somehow to harmonize it. Of course, we know that AMLA will also have the right to coordinate nationally supervisory authorities and providing guidelines for them. So that's mean it will not be independently country by country, but the supervisory authorities from the European Union, they will have the AMLA as the consultative body, and after that the AMLA can say what is necessary to be done or what you need to change just to use the same rules across all European Union. So everyone is waiting for the unified rules. Everyone is waiting, especially the small companies. They are waiting the single regulation book for the same technical procedure, because different countries, they have different not regulation requirements for some procedures, especially for KYC and onboarding. Of course, the AMLA will touch the direct supervision of the biggest financial sectors across European Union. We can guess which company they will choose, or they will target the biggest one or more risky one, but that will be differently. So that's mean the AMLA will choose at least couple companies, not more than 4 companies from each country, but they can supervise them directly, and that will change a lot. Of course, indirect supervision and coordination, sanction compliance, matching things, and it's very important for the cross-border payment, because the AMLA will be centralized organization, and the AMLA will start their own investigation. The AMLA will have the power to give the fines for the financial institutions. That was another big problem and challenges for different countries. Some of the countries and central banks, they fine the companies with the huge fines. Some of the countries, they try to protect national companies from the big fines and so on. The AMLA will change it, because the AMLA will use the same, let's say, power hand, and will try to be more objective as possible. So in short terms, I think we need to save the time, but everyone is waiting for unified and harmonized the rule books, especially with some specific procedure, but it's not specialized at the directive. So that will be the primary task for the AMLA.
Yes, AMLA has pretty a lot of new responsibilities, and also has a lot of new guidelines they should issue in the nearest time. But coming to that, question for you, Rozeta and Marius. What do you think? Is it even possible to harmonize the regulatory approach and the regulations itself, and not overregulate the industry? What do you think?
Thanks
Yeah,
for the
Marius.
question. Should I go for Marius?
Yeah, I can just mention that some threats are, if the country had very, let's say, strong regulation and strict rules for some of the procedure when you're on the what's touching on boarding procedures or KYC procedures and so on, reporting for the financial intelligence units and other things. And what if AMLA will apply lighter rules? So that's mean with the less specific regulation or less requirement for that. So some of the jurisdictions, they will face the problem that they over-regulated something, and other jurisdiction will start just to compete with them because they will have, let's say, lighter regulation. So it's not a problem to make it stronger. It's a problem to make it lighter a little bit, because we heard already that some countries, they use, let's say, they over regulate some things, and it's not necessary to be done. But other countries, they just pass through and say, no, it's not, for example, suspicious for us, and you can go without any specific limitation on that. So we have differences even at European Union. So the challenge for the AMLA regarding the unified regulation will be somehow do not overregulate it, and somehow do not make it easier, for example, existing systems. So it's my personal opinion.
All right, Rozeta, what do you think about the harmonization?
If I'm honest, I think it's a difficult question because it's not so easy to harmonize the regulations across member states, across the union. The anti-money laundering regulation actually came into force in July 2024, and it's expected to be implemented in July 2027. So it gives member states 3 years time to prepare. It means it's not so straightforward. And AMLA, of course, will play a crucial role in the EU developments, and it has just been established. So there are new standards to be defined. There are still harmonization should also make sure that the information obtained in the performance of the customer due diligence now is not used by obliged entities to pursue de-risking, for instance, practices which might result in circumvention of other obligations laid down in other directives. I could mention payment service directives, for instance. So I see three main components that need to be considered, and they are, okay, a new set of standards has to be established at first, and then ensuring that other legal obligations are not circumvented. And thirdly, overcoming national differences. So for me, in my opinion, this really requires commitment, hard work, and cooperation of all stakeholders. So easy it is not, but it's not impossible.
So the task is not to harmonize the regulations, but to move towards the harmonization.
I would say so, yeah.
All right.
Just small remark regarding the same harmonization of the different KYC procedures. We know different practice across European Union countries regarding the data protection. And we know how European Union countries differently implemented data protection regulation. The same data minimization principle. At the Baltic states, the financial institution, we try to collect more as they can. At the same time, Netherlands and other, they use that data minimization principle. They say that you need to prove that you need that information. And if you are not using it, so don't collect it. So that will be challenged also, for us, for example, because we had that practice. We try to collect more and more as we can. Even if you don't use that information and you're not able to prove that you use that information, still you're just collecting it. And that will be challenging because we know that some of countries, we're looking and they have the sensitive opinion and view regarding data protection.
Thank you, Marius. A good example and an analogy. It's the history has seen already some examples of that. All right, moving forward, it would be interesting to hear what is the United Kingdom's approach in that, and are there lessons the European Union and the member states can take from the United Kingdom's experience? And here, I would like to give a word to Professor Branislav Hock.
Thank you very much, Andrei. Well, I'm very grateful to be here. It's a big question. I'm not sure what to learn, but I think they can learn from each other in their past experience with some similar governance projects that have been out there, for example, in the context of liberalization of telecommunications market and establishment of similar entities that were asked to harmonize and coordinate. But I would like to make 3 points today. So the first point is I would like to just briefly think about some key rationales of legislation and AMLA supervision, and perhaps this will tell us something about approach in the UK and approach in EU. Secondly, we have quite a bit unpacked these various governance options that are out there and what that AMLA brings. So maybe shortly I would like to reflect upon that and use these 2 examples to learn something from some other regulatory areas. So AMLA in this way is not special. We have seen many similar projects and much more complicated projects, I would say, including, for example, introduction of BEREC in the context of telecommunications. So maybe this is something which can show us as well the relationship between UK, who was part of the process, leading process on liberalization of telecoms, then leaving EU and going a little bit its own way. So maybe we can learn from some of those examples. So regarding rationals, I feel, and maybe, and just correct me, it's so new and there's plenty of things to discuss, but I feel there is some kind of trade-off between, let's say, why you are actually enforcing anti-money laundering laws, why you're regulating on it, what ultimately do you want to achieve? Less money laundering? Not perhaps only. It's a matter of competition. It's a matter of maximizing efficiency or consumer welfare. I feel in the UK, it would be maybe a little bit more going in the kind of deregulation or less regulation area, maximization of welfare, consumer welfare. So market resolving some of the issues and the problems itself. So for example, if de-risking becomes a problem, how and to what extent will market fill the gap of certain consumers not having access to certain services, for example, or should there be regulation on that? On the other hand, if you look at this EU project, what's that about? It's about internal market. It's about open competition. Money laundering is bad because if somebody lets through their processes money laundering, so they have a competitive edge to others. They're distorting competition. Therefore, the consumers are worse off ultimately. So there are very different rationales behind those projects and the reasons why you are actually policing. So it's one thing to consider. I think in UK we are on that end of less regulation. Europe comes with, EU comes with more regulation. Then what is that project about? So you have a number of options. So it was said by previous speakers, lack of clear and consistent rules. We are going more towards direct applicability harmonization. It's as well about inconsistent supervision across the internal market. The baseline scenario is coordination through, for example, European Banking Authority. But they are really going for, it's really ambitious. What we are seeing here is, what's the option here? The option is, on the one hand, indirect supervision through an entity, EU entity, of all obliged entities. On the other hand, direct supervision of these highest risk entities. So it's a major, it's like nearly maximalist, let's say. And thirdly, what the project is about insufficient coordination and exchange of information with regards to financial intelligence units and what options you have and what you go for. You can establish an EU-wide financial intelligence unit. Okay, they didn't do that. You don't go for this max option, but you still are pretty, let's say, you are still pretty confident in or ambitious in going for EU-level coordination and support mechanism. Okay, so quite confident, maximalist option here. Wow, this is completely new. So much things to discuss. So last thing I want to mention is to try something original. Maybe I'm completely of or not, but I think we can learn from history, and we can learn from some more complex projects that have been here across last 30 years. Resolved in a similar way when it comes to governance. So if you look at EU telecom policy, I want to make this argument. So let's look at something else and what can we learn from it. So what is there? There are big monopolies in 80s. Let's say 1988, we have telecom monopolies. So what the EU is trying to do, they are trying to liberalize the sector, liberalize it through step-by-step approach. Takes 15 years or something like that. So you are getting all segments of the telecoms market liberalized. So you go through cable TV networks, mobile communications. So in order to enhance competition, so it's innovation, we got internet prices are going down. What comes next? Harmonization. So they are issuing regulation. They said, oh, it should be across the board. You know, we make a big disruption. It's a big chaos. We are liberalizing. We want competition. We want something to be happening. And then it sets down and we go with harmonization. We go with regulation. We go with standardization. So we create new rules in the second stage. So open network provisions, for example, it's really kind of more like, and then thirdly, what happens is you start applying EU competition rules to those liberalized segments. So you already have a competition, it sets down, and you start applying this internal market, and that's, I think, where we are getting with anti-money laundering. There are some directives, there is some history, you get regulation, and you're going to be much more detailed. And what comes then? Well, it's BEREC. What's BEREC? It's a decentralized EU agency. What's AMLA? It's EU decentralized agency. There are over 30 decentralized agencies, and they kind of carry out these technical, scientific, managerial tasks. So we see in a similar way this coming through. And now, what happens after Brexit? So it's a paradox, you know, in a way that that kind of liberalization agenda was pushed by the UK largely. So paradox of Brexit is that while the UK has left the EU, UK has been championed policy ideas that underpin that EU telecoms framework, and from this original liberalization, we see this kind of good consumer outcomes coming in that regulation. This what we see here. There will be Court of Justice EU deciding over cases of perhaps de-risking, discrimination, and these kind of things like overreach, let's say, of in the context of compliance. And you see UK coming out. We have some concept like net neutrality and stuff like that when Court of Justice is deciding. I'm going to finish. I know I'm getting over, but I just finishing now. So you are going out and you say there will be a regulatory alignment between UK and EU in the context of telecoms. But you already see that concept of neutrality. There are deviations, and the UK is coming in some areas. It gives you some power. If this is a COVID, you want to have free learning. You will not count data maybe on your mobile phone data because you want to support children going from studying from home, for example, over a mobile phone. So you violate this net neutrality. So you see there are some kind of state aid and other consideration that gives you some freedom. The same in anti-money laundering. So I think I haven't made that analysis. Like I just see a big comparison in between what has happened 30 years ago in different industries and what's happening now. And I feel it's much more complex to liberalize complete telecommunications sector, create new rules, and then start harmonizing, and then going through something like AMLA in order to be very detailed, and then Court of Justice coming. So here we are in some of that stages, which was around 2010 in telecom markets, I think. And that's my reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hock. It's a very good analogy as well to compare those different industries like of telecoms and the anti-money laundering to understand the regulatory nuances, as to speak, and how to not over-regulate something. And all right, moving forward, let's move forward to our next segment of the discussion about the new challenges and evolving risks and the according responses in the EU and the UK. And let's now outline classic and emerging money laundering risks, particularly cross-border, especially between the UK and EU, trade-based money laundering, and also cryptocurrency-related threats, as they are still on the agenda, and how they differ between the countries. And here I would like to give a word to Dr. Mariola Marzouk. Please.
Oh, thank you. Well, you probably will want me to say about new and emerging, risk as you've outlined, something that we haven't heard before. But I am going to say that the old risks are actually the ones that we are frequently totally overlooked and are causing us quite trouble in how we detect criminality. So I think instead of focusing on the future of potential things, let's just have a reflection a little bit about how well we are doing with the current situation. So you mentioned crypto. We are not going to dive into that. However, I think it's worth pointing out that crypto transactions still form a very tiny percentage, I think about 0.9% of how transactions are being conducted. And analysis by some of the crypto technology providers who made their solutions to actually mitigate money laundering on blockchain transactions, actually point out that when you look at all those transactions being conducted, even smaller percentage of the 0.9, it's about 0.24 on top of my head, percent of that is actually linked to suspicious activity. Suspicious activities means we actually don't know these are criminal origin of not. And further, if you look at this 0.24%, 0.9%, many of them are linked to sanctions. So really, it's worth our focus if still in this era we can very easily, lack of dirty company, we're going to overlook that. We're just going to focus on crypto. It doesn't seem like a very efficient use of the resources and our research as well. Further, on this research agenda, trade-based money laundering is really under-researched. Economic crime is under-researched. Not much funds are being provided for this. We have a small number of law enforcement dedicated to tackling economic crimes. So we actually have very little amount of knowledge about criminality and how money is being laundered in practice. 40 years or 30 years on, we still understand very little on this subject. So that's emerging risk, right? It's an old emerging risk that continues. We simply do not understand enough. Ineffective AML, I will say. We have this AML regime set up, but is it really effective in deterring criminality? Well, we have been quoting that money laundering prevalence back in 1999 by Dr. Walker's research said that it's about 3 trillion a year. Nowadays, we're quoting that it's 5% of the global GDP. That's huge. So we are actually not making it any smaller. So how effective is this regime actually? So let's say that's a risk. We simply don't know. We don't measure it. We don't know. Then it's another one that has been spoken here about. All eyes are on international transaction by sophisticated groups and so forth. But nobody talks about domestic money laundering at all. We are jumping on detecting complex international transactions purposely designed to evade our AML detections, but we are not considered criminals maximizing their domestic abilities. So from example, from my trade-based money laundering research, many professionals were actually highlighting that if they were a criminal trying to evade detections, the first thing they would do is maximize domestic opportunities before even considering to go international. Because they know this is the regulatory regime. They know that banks actually have quite sophisticated tools to monitor international transactions. Why complicate your own life as a criminal if we can very effectively do it domestically? But we are not focused on that. We don't talk about domestic trade-based money laundering at all. What else? Let's talk about maybe private and partners, right? We're all constantly advocating how good these are and how beneficial for detection of suspicious activities. But actually, where are the evidence that these are working to what we expect? As a matter of fact, the regime is so restrictive, and we have very little resources. Many financial institutions run on fear of being fined. They feel actually compelled to participate in those private public partnerships, which in effect takes away the whole purpose of partnership. And as a matter of fact, we don't see much of an evidence of it being very successful. I'll take an example from UK Gimlet. Again, referring back to my research on trade-based money laundering, participants were saying that the public-private Gimlet collaboration on trade-based money laundering topic resembled very much a law enforcement coming with some sort of information and telling banks about it, then banks taking that information and searching for those individuals or all those threats. It was very much, here is what it is, you go search for it. There wasn't much collaboration. And when I asked why, it was because we don't understand the problem. We have very little research on that. So why focus on some future permutations if actually our current challenges are not being addressed? We are ignoring them. So I'll stop on that.
All right, thank you very much. Right now, everyone can see a poll on their screen with a question whether you agree that we do not know much about how the funds are actually being laundered. It will be very interesting to see the results of this poll, and I will share it with Dr. Mariola afterwards, and we'll publish the results. So answer please, what do you think, whether we actually know how the criminals are laundering their dirty profits? So, all right, it's time to move a little bit forward, and our next topic of the discussion. Thank you very much, by the way, Mariola, for introducing us to the new and emerging risks in anti-money laundering space. And yes, so the question now to Professor Marius: will the new European regulation and AMLA specifically help businesses overcome these risks, and how, especially those of which Dr. Mariola was talking about? What do you think?
Yeah, and maybe I'll start from most interesting aspect for me, because the unified regulation will help for especially the small fintech industry, the companies, to expand activities across the union. Because we had that serious problem, because different procedures were regulated differently. So the same onboarding procedure, even if you are creating some software solution based on the identification procedure, some companies face the problem that they're not able to connect to some national registries and other things, different regulations, requirements for the steps of identification. We know the same directive but different practice, and that harmonizing of the rules across all European Union, of course, will create opportunities for the business to develop products, specifically products and money laundering prevention, KYC procedures, onboarding procedures, and that product the companies will use across all European Union at the same manner and the way. And it will be particularly benefit smaller fintech companies, as I mentioned. For them, it will make easier to entering new markets. For them, it will be easier to expand existing business across European Union. The same uniform requirements will eliminate some reliance on different interpretation of the national supervisory authorities of the clump, because we have the complexity and different practice from them. And this streamlined regulatory environment will foster innovation, of course. The same will increase the competitions between the fintech industry. It will enable for the fintech and existing financial services to scale their operation more efficiently with the one unified single European market. But most important, that unified rules and provided rule books from the AMLA will help other businesses to create more efficient products for the existing financial system. The same suspicious operation detection based on the machine learning and other things. Now they face the problem. Different countries, they regulate it differently. But if the AMLA will adopt the rules and will say that you need to use the newest technology, you need to use the, let's say, by default, the big data analysis. So the smaller company, they will create the product and they will be able to expand the product across all European Union because the fintech company will use it with no threats, for example, with no risks, because it will be regulated unified. So that's the main message. That's why everyone is waiting for that unified regulation, especially for some technical questions in the matter, especially the same for the questionnaires. What questionnaires and how we need to create it, how often we need to update some details. Maybe we can take it from the open sources and other things. Do we need to dive deeper, or it's not enough to use less or interact with the less privacy element? So that's my short response to that topic.
Thank you very much, Professor Marius, for that again overview of AMLA's role. And the question is now, what practical steps the financial institutions should, or regulated entities should undertake to comply with these new regulations and manage risks effectively? And the question is for Rozeta and Marius. I will give a word firstly to Rozeta, please.
Thank you, Andrei. That's a good question, actually. Well, in my view, the starting point for the financial institution should be a gap analysis and the resource estimation. It is also a good time to think about digitalization. But this is, again, not so straightforward. This is a challenge because while some criteria have already been established in the regulations, and AMLA is just established, but the regulation has already set clearly some criteria, there are others that are partially defined or need further refinement. For instance, when we refer to beneficial ownership, it is set at 25% or more, but in specific risk sensitive cases I mentioned earlier as well, the Commission should be able to set different thresholds, which could be between 15% and 25% of ownership. So it is there are many criteria which are not clearly defined yet, and therefore it is not so straightforward to perform some gap analysis, to make resource assessments. So in addition to the above, I think it is crucial to remain vigilant and up to date with the updates that are coming up regularly recently, and also to seek expert assistance in specific cases when there is uncertainty or so. So this is my view. It's personal view, but I think it kind of summarizes the current situation where we stand right now with new emerging regulations and still uncertainty in certain definitions. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Professor Marius, please.
I just can add some technical challenges for the companies to match the new standards, and especially for the fintech industry. Now we know that the European Union and AMLA, they support the initiative to create their databases of the account holder and other things. So that's mean the challenge for the fintech industry is to unify some payment technology. We know that they're using the pool accounts for the transactions. We know that not all of them have the direct access to the national payment system. They are using the third-party services. They're using the credit institution help for the initiate and finalizing the transactions. So in the future, they will need to update the technology. They will need to add more data to the transaction system, because it will not be enough just to have the own transaction numbers. It should be unified across all European Union financial institutions. And I'm not talking about IBAN numbers. I'm talking about traceability. I'm talking about the chance to trace from the beginning till the end, even if you use the sample accounts, and even if it was done on behalf of the big company or a smaller one, it will be quite hard for them to combine the transaction to one, because they need to have, once again, traceability. They have it now, but it will be more difficult for them to be part of the unified registry system if they will use different standards and different identifications, for example, numbers. So that will be a challenge for the existing fintech company, because not all of them providing the IBAN numbers, not all of them, they do not need, for example, to have the access to existing financial system of the credit institution. They can offer you different kind of the services. So that will be challenging. The same for the open banking services also. They need to harmonize technology. They did that, but it will cost a lot in future for them also.
All right, thank you very much, every one of you. Let's switch to our next segment of the future, and let's talk about what's next and the future of the UK and EU anti-money laundering collaboration. And here I would like to talk firstly about the risks of insufficient collaboration between the UK and EU. And here I would like to give the word to Igoris. Igoris, please.
Thank you very much, Andrei. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, for invitation to participate in our very important meeting. And of course, question I think which you are presented here about future now is this key question for many representatives of financial industries, fintech, etc. What Marius said, because now everybody thinking about the future and thinking first of all about resources, about necessary financial or technical human resources which must be spent for the implementation of these new documents. And of course, just for the future, after analysis of new AML directives, of course, it's quite difficult to say now, because you saw in these documents many links to the future documents which must be developed and approved by AMLA. Many, I don't know really the number of these future document and instructions which must be developed and approved by AMLA in order to implement this directive. But of course, we have question now already how these documents will really influence this regulation and what kind of new challenges these new documents of AMLA will bring to industry. Because in any way, we understood now the key role of AMLA, key task of these new documents to make our financial system more safe, more transparent. I absolutely agree with that. But on the other hand, AMLA and other European Commission institutions related with that, with these activities, also need to send really clear signal for financial industries, not only financial industries, which involved really about the cost, how much it will be really cost, how much you need to plan for the next years, speaking about industry, and of course, what is the future talking about state institutions. Of course, now, according to new documents, we'll have so-called 3 European level databases, such as beneficial owner register, account register, and what is very interesting too, what's really big surprise for me, real estate register as well. Because in new documents, it's also regulated a real estate register, which of course is very important for state institutions. And again, is a question that we need to now, already state institutions also need to be involved in this discussion and really discuss about action plan, strategies, and other strategic documents necessary for development, improvement of such databases as well. It's a lot of work.
Yes, there is a lot of work still. Maybe Marius, do you have some comments on that? Or
yeah, just a short remark regarding the obligation, and we know that the number of the obligation increase all the time, but now we can hear some opinion about some duties. We know that money laundering and other things, it's state duty to protect from it. And now they put more and more an obligation on the financial sector to ensure that you will fight against not even the money laundering and a lot of other illegal activities. And now we are starting to ask about primary purpose of the financial institution. We know it's just from A to B, move the money. But now the if you look at 100% of the financial institution activities, more than half of it related with some obligation that should be, or let's say, transferred to the public entities to ensure that. So the Igoris said about the costs. Yeah, we know that supervisory authorities all the time said the cost is not the argument. So it's no matter the cost. So you need to spend as much as is necessary, but it's just theoretical question. What will happen in the future? What if we will transfer all the governmental and official obligation from the state to the private sector? Is it possible to control? So that it is possible to control everything? Just it's this question. Even if we create more and more new obligation on the financial industry, will we have the real working control mechanism for that? That's the challenging for the future. So AMLA somehow will try to solve that problem. To centralize the authority, the centralized supervising, and the same with the monitoring and other things.
All right, thank you very much. These challenges of insufficient collaboration are strategic ones, but now let's talk about the challenges, more specific ones. The challenges around data sharing and enforcement in cross-border anti-money laundering efforts, and how can these challenges be addressed? And here I would like to give a word to Dr. Mariola. Please.
Thank you. Trade-based laundering is considered to be such across countries because a phenomenon letting go and ranging of money laundering by 3 trillions or even more, which kind of makes it, the money laundering effort, if we're quoting those numbers. So the collaboration between actually parties, let's split into public-private kind of collaborations, right? Collaboration between financial institutions and public sector bodies representatives. For example, when we have understanding money laundering, we have a challenge with resources that are working on detecting financial criminality. We have those challenges within the public bodies. So as I've mentioned before, the amount of people that or law enforcement that is dedicated to investigating economic crimes in the United Kingdom is very small. The FCA actually has been recently surveyed, and the surveys from employees working for the FCA and who left only negative. Meaning it very much a management concept to work their careers jeopardized. So they fear to speak up, they fear to present their perspectives. And when they do, financial institutions also during my studies were telling me that they have tried to engage with the regulators and the law enforcement in a number of cases, trying to explain to them how they themselves experience trade-based money laundering versus how they are being told they should be experiencing money laundering that is associated with trade-based money laundering. And they were very frequently pushed back. They were pushed back because trade-based money laundering is very much associated with trade finance products. Trade finance products represent about 20%, apparently, of how international transactions are being conducted. And most of the other methods, like say open account trade, which is I just send the money, wire the money with some invoice, is the more prevalent one. And in fact, they were not receiving a welcomed message. They were still rudimentarily told, you must have very strict controls on trade finance products. So that is therefore quite a rudimental, rule-based regime. And if you want to collaborate, you need to trust the other parties that they understand the risks they are exposed to. You need to understand that they can themselves assess how they should be mitigating criminality passing through their institutions. But that's not what happens. Financial institutions actually were strongly expressing to me that they feel like the regulators and the law enforcement constantly blames them for the money laundering problem being so prevalent and for it not being resolved till today, that they are willfully and willingly facilitating those transactions for their financial benefit. And I can tell you that from all of the MLROs I spoke to, none of them actually had this sort of perception about the work they do. They really wanted to detect it. They really want to make this world a better place. But how can you facilitate these collaborations if this is this sort of a dynamics that is happening? If there is simply lack of trust, if there is simply a blame game around, like passing the failure of a regime like a hot potato. Who's here responsible for us still not being able to detect criminality? We are very publicly quoted. Criminals never caught. Less than 1% of criminals is ever caught. Less than 1% in the UK. Well, we have confiscated in 2021. UK is accountable for laundering 100 billion. FTA in 1 year fined 3 banks only. Here, a target of the institutions. This dynamics, does this create an environment for collaboration? And this is, by the way, not only the UK problem. This is a problem in the United States. And this is the problem across the entire European Union. So how are we practicing this public-private partnership? We are not incentivizing it to properly function, are we? I'll leave that with a question.
Yes, that's a good question you're raising about the importance of public-private partnership, and that it should be done, it should be managed. The thing is how to create such public-private partnerships and not to jeopardize the competition as well. So
I can very quickly answer. How about we just trust each other? We frequently say how criminals are successful because they run on trust. Why don't we trust each other? There is no public-private partnership. There's no partnership whatsoever in any relationship, sorry, even in marriage, if people don't trust each other. Are we in the same boat? Clearly not. We're all in different boats, going in all sorts of different directions with different objectives, different strategies, different resources. Yeah, it's not going to work. I'm sorry. Until we try each other, like the criminals do. How about we take a lesson from them?
that's
Sorry.
that's a very good suggestion, actually. Maybe that's due to the specifics of our industry, is not to trust too much. All right. Let's move forward a bit. It was quite an energetic presentation. Thank you, Dr. Mariola. Let's now talk about the role of technology, the RegTech, and other innovations that are present and that are becoming even more popular, and their role in facilitating cross-border anti-money laundering efforts and improving compliance efficiency. And here, I would like to give a word to Professor Marius.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll give you an example from Lithuania regarding the technology and the challenging technology. So now hot topic is the artificial intelligence. Everyone is talking about it. Everyone is expert in that field. And we know that European Union adopted the Artificial Intelligence Act, so it's not a big deal. We have the joke, US invented, China replicated, European Union regulated. That's the big problem and huge challenge. All the products, especially technological products, they are out from the European Union. So we are using other countries' software and other solutions. But Lithuania, we have one of the biggest financial institutions at European Union with the more than 45 million clients. And more than 2 years ago, they start to use machine learning for the suspicion transaction tracking. And now what happened in the small country of Lithuania? They used advanced technology. They used artificial intelligence solution. And they just, sent 100,000 STRs to the Lithuanian FIUs. And the question is it possible to analyze all of them? And it's not just like the threshold from the amount of the money. No, it's the real suspicions transaction reports regarding the regulation. And that's the challenge from technology. Of course, a lot of false positive STRs. But the biggest question is, what other fintech industry companies will do, because the supervised authorities look at the one of the biggest company, they implemented the technology, they use artificial intelligence, and now they're saying, it's like the standard for the market, and it's like by default, and all other companies, you should do the same. You should implement all possible technology. You should implement big data analysis, and you should spend a lot of money for artificial intelligence solutions. And you need to do the same, send analysis, and so on. Where's the biggest problem? Who will define the technology and who can describe it? No one, because we have technological neutrality requirements for that. But the huge challenge is that the companies, they can use that method just to overflow the STRs. They can use it for the different purposes, and that is the challenges. The technology is not the answer. Technology is the huge challenge, because if some country will just state that it's minimum requirements to use that, others will not be able, because it will not be enough financial resources to do that. So it's not so easy to say that someone will describe or state technology. Each month it's changing, and the same criminals, they're using the same technology, and the financial institution, if they have enough resources, they do the same. So my short message is that the technology will have a lot of problem in the future, because the financial institution, they need to be clear about the strategical reputation, about the same legal reputation, and not reputation, legal threats and other things. So what if they will invest a lot to the technology, and after that, we know the European Union position. If some authorities will ban that technology, what next? So that's my short remark about the technology. So we do not be so fancy, to use everything, because we don't know the some specific, especially courts, European Justice Court, European Human Rights Court, and we know that it's very sensitive regarding the privacy and other issues. So yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you very much. I think there was also a question from Graham about the implementation of new technologies such as zero knowledge procedure technology for digital identity. And small remark here: it is yet too early to talk about what AMLA is looking for, as they are still in the process of approving the head of AMLA, and the exact agenda is still unknown, what they are looking into. But of course, they are looking into a lot of new technologies and innovations, and I'm sure that they are looking into it as well. So yes, a lot of technologies. Let's conclude here. I would like to have a bottom line. We have a lot of new regulations in place, a lot of new articles that we should follow, and also we'll be navigating the establishment and the work of AMLA, the Anti-Money Laundering Authority, closely, as they are in the process of creating their team, and recently they nominated a person who can be a potential head of Anti-Money Laundering Authority. And so they are still in the process, but they already have a lot of work in 2025 So we'll be looking closely. We have a lot of challenges in the future, and the importance of collaboration between the two financial regions, two important financial regions as the UK and the European Union, is of utmost importance. And yes, maybe Igoris, you have something to mention about the importance of such collaboration to our viewers.
Absolutely. Talking about collaboration, what is mentioned, Professor Marius, it's what really, for what reason, for what our purpose of our cooperation, such cooperation. And purpose, what I fully agree with Marius, that we need to just achieve this level, such good high level of cooperation, when it will be important, or key target will be not number of reports, but quality of reports. Because in the past, I remember very good when I worked in the position of the head of anti-money laundering unit of Lithuania, in Financial Crimes Investigation Service of Lithuania, and this time, what is one of the key priority for us, for Financial Intelligence Unit, was development of dialogue with financial institutions, or better to say, anti-money laundering reporting entities, in order to prove, in order to maybe not push, but let us say to discuss and agree that quality is number one. And of course, we were asked by industry, please provide us clear indicators about priority, what it really mean. And of course, I remember as one of the such priority was freezing of suspicious transactions, which freezing, which give possibility law enforcement to react, timely react, and start criminal investigation with possible confiscation of money. And but anyway, now after these new documents of EU were approved, this communication and cooperation really will be very crucial, important, what I said already before, because without such dialogue, without trust, as was very good mentioned before, we could really overload this anti-money laundering system. And what is the result? The result of such bad communication, wrong communication, or lack, I could say, better effective communication, it will be growing number of reports to send by industry to Financial Intelligence Unit, and of course, growing number of reports. But of course, I have very serious doubts about quality of feedback, because don't forget, feedback is one of the key requirements of FATF, one of the key recommendations of FATF. And without proper feedback, including communication cooperation with banking sector, with other anti-money laundering reporting sectors, I have really serious doubt about improvement of quality of this work.
Yes, I think everyone here agrees to that point that it is a very important aspect. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your expertise and participating in today's panel discussion. It was very intense and full of expertise. Again, thank you very much for participation. And if any of the audience have some questions to the speakers, you can tag them in our LinkedIn as well, and we'll have a discussion there. All right. Let's conclude here, and also make sure to follow the ISAC, the international anti-financial crime community,
International Society of
International
Economic Criminology.
Economic Criminology.
Yes.
It's the project of it's a new project of Professor Branislav. We will be making a huge. They will be delivering a huge impact to the overall economic crime society. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.